That little boy had to have been so filled with the Spirit in that moment and so touched by the move of him. Looked at his mom and was like, Mom, why wouldn't we do this? Like, Jesus died for us. Like, immediately he understood the truth of the gospel, right? It's that idea of coming with the faith of a child. We watched that unveil in that family, and the mother and son both accepted Christ right there.
I'm Kristy Graham, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of On the Ground with Samaritan's Purse, where we take you to the front lines and behind the scenes of our work around the world. I am constantly hearing testimonies from the field, and I want to bring an episode out of every response, but we can't always do that. And so today, I want to bring you several stories from a few of our recent North American disaster relief responses. We have seen so many people come to know Jesus and want to be discipled, like the mother and son that you just heard from. And I've learned how powerful it is to be present with people after a disaster, to be with someone and care and listen. Whether it's a wildfire, a tornado, a hurricane, the impact is different. The circumstances are different, but the mission is the same. It's truly a privilege to stand with people in their suffering and bring the hope of Jesus. And that is why our teams go. One of our North American disaster relief program managers, Aaron Richards, led a wildfire response in Georgia. He shared with me what he saw.
So here recently at the wildfire in Georgia, a lot of that area is a very hard-hit area economically. So a lot of loss, a lot of total loss. A lot of smaller homes, mobile homes, manufactured type homes. And so our teams were able to do a lot. I mean, our teams were able to go in and help with personal content recovery. We were able to go in and try to find some different things, maybe grandma's rings, maybe some wedding rings, a lot of different things that we've recovered over the years doing fires. I've seen people recover photo albums, which is almost, nobody would think you could recover a photo album or a piece of paper, but I've seen it being done. And so here recently, a lot of folks down there were just ready to give up. I think that they've just been through some hard times in life and just were ready to say, hey, it's all gone. But we were able to, come in and talk to them, that ministry of presence, and be able to kind of like start looking for things. And a lot of stuff was found. And so we were able to walk that, with them through that time with the homeowners. And then something that is not being able to be done everywhere is some debris recoveries. And then when you start removing that debris, at the end of the day, you're left with just dirt, just a yard, just property. But the nice thing about it is every single homeowner says at the end of the day, it actually is looking like hope now. Like I can see that I'm to a point where rebuild can happen, like where I can start rebuilding my life, put a new home there, whatever that may look like.
Maybe talk about the stories and the ways that is encouraging, to find grandma's ring, in the midst of a tragedy. How does that offer hope to people? And how does sifting, allow us to share the gospel?
One of the best stories that we had from this recent deployment was a gentleman who came to a multi-agency resource center where we had kind of set up a table and we started talking with him. And he said, well, I just want to get the debris removed. I just need to get the debris removed. And so we were like, look, we know that you want this done, but like, look at the things that can be found. Like, look at the things that we can do. And so he was like, yeah, I think I do want some help. So the day that we were supposed to be there, we show up and, our team is there in order to do the personal content recovery. And he says, he goes, you guys are wanting to look for stuff. He goes, I thought we were just removing the debris today. And we said, look, we talked to you about this before. I can't get heavy equipment over here like right now. So let's just look. What harm's it going to do? If we just have this team go in, they're going to look around. You can give us kind of like what you might think could be there. And he's like, oh, nothing could be there. Nothing could be there. And so, we were like, well, let's just try. So we try. And throughout the day, they're looking and he's kind of directing, still waiting for the heavy equipment team to show up because he wants the debris to be removed. And sure enough, one of the volunteers on the team walks out with this diamond ring. And he was just like, wait a minute, like stuff can be found. Like you actually found that. He was just so convinced that nothing had survived. And so they continued to look. And I think they found a few other things, but this one ring was really special to his wife. And he was just so shocked that we actually found something. As they walk out with it and they're looking at it, the diamond falls out of this ring into the grass. So they're now looking in the grass to find the diamond, which they did find. And so the big joke was we found the ring twice, but it was just so amazing to watch him be able to get the reality of things can be found. And just because we think everything is destroyed, maybe it's not. The best end of that story, at the end of the day, he decided to give his life to Christ, which is obviously the reason why we're there, right? I mean, we want people to know who Jesus is and to give their lives to him. And so to watch that whole thing from beginning to end, and then of course the debris was removed and he was left with his property and ready for rebuild. But yeah, it was a great story just to watch from days before all the way to the end of him having hope again and having this ring and giving his life to Christ. It was great.
That is incredible. And I think it's so important to come alongside people. And I just love that story. And even just the difference in finding the ring the first time, he didn't even know that would even have survived, right? But our teams were faithful to go alongside. But then when you drop it, you know you could find, where it is, right? So it's a different kind of search. It's like, and so I love the way that, again, some people come to us knowing their need for Christ, having understanding or maybe hearing about God before, but some have no idea. They've never heard the name of Jesus. And so I love the way that our teams get to come alongside so many different types of storms. Is there any way that God answered a prayer or went before you and answered that prayer?
I think in fires, I mean, especially with this fire in Georgia, I think that you see it all the time with just, how the stories come about and what team ended up being at that, home. Just like the guy that we had that felt like everything was gone. The team lead that showed up at his home was the right guy. And most of the time you have a volunteer coordinator that's saying, this team lead's going here, this team lead's going here. But in the office every day, we're praying about that, right? We're always praying, hey, God, give us the wisdom that we need. Give us the abilities that we need. And we want these work orders for these homeowners to be orchestrated by you. And so that day, the right team lead was there in order to have that conversation, to connect with him. And so it's great. We see it all the time, especially as staff on the ground. At these deployments, you see God answering these prayers and orchestrating it. I think our human nature is to want us to believe that we're the ones that are making these decisions. And we do make decisions, but as long as we stay in prayer and as long as we stay unified with each other, God's going to direct it. And so I think a lot of times when we think, I'm not sure what to do here, and we make a decision, then we see how God's hand is in it anyway. So we see that all the time. We see it a lot.
God always sends the right volunteers. Later on, you'll hear more stories about how the Lord did that yet again at another response. But right now, I want you to hear from Shannon Daly. She saw God move through our Special Projects teams in both Michigan and Hawaii. Special Projects is a new area of North America disaster relief, where our teams meet critical needs after a disaster, between the cleanup phase and the rebuild phase. We are providing things like gift cards for immediate needs, furniture, and appliances. And I love the fact that we get to have an extended time and build relationships with people after a disaster. After significant flooding in western Michigan, volunteers spent weeks mudding out homes. Samaritan's Purse met with those homeowners to offer additional help. And Shannon shared stories of families that we were able to help physically, but most importantly, spiritually.
I think of a family we went shopping with yesterday, and we're able to buy furniture and appliances with them and just spend some just beautiful time with them. And I think back to the day that they went to survey this lady. She is a believer, but very discouraged. And part of our survey process is that as we are led, we're able to share a gift card with them that they can take and go meet some immediate needs. Maybe that's replacing food or whatever. And she broke into tears when they handed her that gift card. It was particularly cold here last week. And she said, the night before, she had cuddled with her dogs to try to stay warm. She knew what she was going to do with that gift card. She was going to buy a blanket to stay warm the next night. And you just think of that and you think, she's lost everything and she didn't even have a blanket to stay warm. And so just being able to share that with her and then to watch her and her husband interact as they were picking out just the precious nature of them looking out for each other and what each other wanted and needed. And then just, the opportunity to pray with them as we left that home improvement store and just praise God for the way that he provides.
That just makes me cry, to think a blanket. I thought of 100 other things that she might have said, but I mean, and as you said, it's cold. And this is why I love that people feel seen. And that is God. God is the God who sees. He sees us. He meets us. And I think I love, and even as you're talking, I thought of Hagar, in the wilderness, like God came to her and he saw her and he provided that direct need. And so people listening, I think oftentimes we think we can't get involved. There's nothing I can offer, but can you see somebody? Can you sit with them and ask, what do you even need? Because I think curiosity, Jesus showed that in many ways, interactions when he was here on earth. I mean, he was curious. He would ask them, what do you need? Even though he knew. I mean, we often don't, but I think you're just reminding me of the importance of curiosity and just seeing people. And I think when they do tell us or when they break down and allow us in, it is such a humbling opportunity, and to just be able to help them to feel seen, but then introduce them to the one who sees them, or remind, some know him, but they're discouraged. Hard storms have come before the storms.
I think that's very true. The time and time again, you hear that the things that they've been dealing with, whether it's, one of our homeowners here who he's been through a divorce in the last few months. He's been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and then he had a flood. The flood is the least of his worries. In all honesty, it's the least of his need. But we're able to come in and love on him and share the love of Christ with him and point him that way. Team's going to go shopping with him tomorrow and have more opportunity just to show him how much he is seen, not just by us, but like you said, by the God who created him, and that he's loved by Jesus Christ.
And then Hawaii, what was that storm like, responding to a place that maybe we don't usually go to?
Absolutely. So there in the North Shore of Oahu, they had back-to-back Kona lows, causing a lot of flooding, especially across the North Shore of Oahu. But it was off a lot of Hawaii itself. But we concentrated on that North Shore of Oahu. And what an amazing opportunity to be able to come in to people who, what we most predominantly ran into were people who were good people, right? Who believed in a lot of spiritual things, but just needed pointing towards Christ. And so we saw it over and over again that they were searching, they were looking for things spiritually, but just didn't know where to find the answer. And so that as our teams came in and built just phenomenal relationships with people. And I love it. One of our team members shared one night that she was talking with someone and just told them, as they said they were seen and they felt loved. And she just looked at them and she said, I love you so much that I can't not share the gospel with you. Can I share it with you now? And then she walked through steps to peace with that person. And I think, what a conviction in my own life as I walk past people, when I have those missed opportunities to share the gospel, am I saying that I didn't love them? But the fact that, she loves them so much, she can't not share. And I love that. It's such a great encouragement to all of us of the needs to share. But there in Hawaii, we replaced building materials, furniture, and appliances. I think of my first day there, and we had a church partner that met us, and he connected us immediately with a husband and wife who spent their entire day, last minute, literally, they were just called while we were standing in the parking lot and said, hey, can you come up here and meet these people? And then they spent their entire day driving through the flooded areas and introducing us to one person in every community that was flooded to give us the inroads into those communities so people would know who we were. They would know to trust us as we came in because they trusted this couple. And so that trust was being transferred to us rather quickly. That gave us the inroads to be able to talk to people, because sometimes those communities, even more so than what we see on the mainland, are very closed off to people they don't know and people who don't live in their community. And so it was just such a great connection that local church gave us to be able to be in there and then just be able to go door to door, meeting with people and finding out what their needs were and how to help them. And I just think of we had a lady in one community, completely devastated community. The houses, were washed into the river, blocked the bridge, caused even more flooding for the houses that remained. And this lady was natively Hawaiian, and she was telling our team how much she hated what Christians did when they came to Hawaii and how they hurt her people. And then she looked our team member in the face and said, but I'm having a hard time hating you right now because you've changed my view of who Christians are and who Christ is. And so just amazing to be able to see that. She didn't accept Christ yet that I'm aware of. But have the seeds been planted? And we're excited for the church to follow up.
I just love that story. And that's why as Christians, we have to be humble like Christ. He came to not to be served, but to serve. And so we don't want to come in with an agenda and just run over people. And so I love that that's why Samaritan's Purse, that's why we work with the local church all over the world, because we want to come in and actually be helpful.
I just think of the overwhelming response we had from those 16 people who did accept Christ in our presence. I think of one family, it was a mother-son that our team sat in their home and met with them, and they shared steps to peace with God with them. And the son, who was 14, was just at the end of it. He was like, oh yeah, we need to do this. And the mom, who had a very different belief system, was like, it sounds good. It's probably good for you, maybe not good for me. And that little boy had to have been so filled with the Spirit in that moment and so touched by the move of him, looked at his mom and was like, Mom, why wouldn't we do this? Like, Jesus died for us. Like, immediately he understood the truth of the gospel, right? It's that idea of coming with the faith of a child. We watched that unveil in that family, and the mother and son both accepted Christ right there, and then had been attending church at one of our partner churches up there, had been attending every Sunday since then to grow in their faith. And so to see that genuineness, and sometimes in disaster relief, because we moved to so many homes so quickly, cleaning up, which is what is needed. And we share the gospel and people accept Christ, but we never get to hear the rest of the story, right? Were they discipled? Did they move on? But this process of being able to go back multiple times, we're able to see that. We're able to see them in the churches. And so it's just, to us, a blessing that God gives us to be able to see growth in others, right? And to know that that's being encouraged and that they're not just left out there as a floundering new Christian, but they are being discipled. They are growing in their faith, and continuing on, and hopefully then taking that and making more disciples by sharing the gospel with others.
The Lord is the one who convicts. He brings people to himself, and sometimes this takes time. But what a gift it is for our teams to be part of this process as they sow seeds. Where could God use you to plant seeds? I want to be like that volunteer who said, I love you too much to not share the gospel with you. Next, I want to share a conversation that another one of our program managers, Jacob Rutz, he was on the ground in Wisconsin after major flooding. He shared that our teams were able to go into a place that didn't know about Samaritan's Purse before the disaster. They were able to share the love of Christ, and they witnessed 23 people give their lives to the Lord.
Initially, what we noticed is that area of Wisconsin really didn't know anything about Samaritan's Purse. So it was really just kind of a blank page of starting out there, which was a great opportunity, really, because they were asking questions right from the get-go, is why do we do what we do? There was one homeowner who is battling terminal cancer. He's been battling for about 7 years now, and it's kind of nearing the end phase of that treatment. He stopped treatment actually, and he's just kind of looking towards the end. And when our first team got there to serve him, they could really tell he was at his wit's end and at his physical end, just not really being able to understand why this would happen, why so many bad things had happened in his life just leading up to this event. And he received about 4 feet of water in his home. a home that he was planning on giving to his daughter after he had passed. And so our team had to go in there and start taking stuff out, start removing that drywall. It took 3 days of our teams out there working. But each day that team went back and just continued to love on that homeowner, continued to pray with him, meet him where he was in that loss, in that hopelessness, really, and share the hope of Christ with him. He was not a believer to start, and then after some conversations with the volunteers, conversations with the chaplains, he actually gave his life to the Lord after we presented the Bible to him on the last day of serving him. And his countenance, both physically and emotionally, was just completely changed from when the team first went out there. To that hopelessness, to just being able to see the light in his eyes return, that excitedness for his future in heaven, and also for the future that we were able to help in that home with his daughter and with her family. I was able to speak to him personally 3 or 4 times and visit him and just love on him. And I think that really is the impact of these volunteer teams as we go out there. Even the small storms that are 2 to 3 weeks long, for that individual homeowner, that water gets into their home, that's devastating. Whether it's one home or 1,000 homes that were affected, for that one family, for that one person, that's that darkness, that's that storm that is overwhelming. So to have our teams out there loving on each individual homeowner, each individual home, and then those neighbors, that community seeing what we do, that's why we're out there.
I don't know how people do hardship without the Lord. I mean, I don't know how people do the life. Even when things are going good, it's still hard. And so to be able to offer them that hope and security, that's why we go. And I love how you talked about the Bible dedication, and maybe just talk about that and why that is so important in what we do.
Our teams go to these homes and serve them physically where they're at in their home, preparing for the next step of that rebuild process. And when we do finish, we give them the most important gift, and that's the gospel, the gift of Christ's message in the gospel. And so we circle up around with that homeowner. There's a Bible that all of the volunteers have signed themselves. And every time we present that Bible to the homeowner, it's a very emotional and very strong moment where usually the person that connected with that homeowner the most presents that Bible, just kind of goes through what is in there. But really, we focus on the red letters, the words of Christ in the New Testament, just of the lesson and the story of hope that he brings through his life here on earth, that there can be eternal salvation with acceptance of him and repentance of sins. And so it is that eternal gift that he provides that we just present to that homeowner at the very end, a gift that they don't have to earn, that they don't have to work towards, that they just have to accept Christ and they can receive freely. And to see the emotions that come through that with the homeowners praying with us, with the team, holding hands in a circle after we've been able to be with them for several days working on homes, just to cap it all off in that strong moment of prayer while presenting the Bible. Every time there's not a dry eye in that circle when we do walk away and we have that time of prayer.
Is there a way that God answered your prayers? And I know our teams, we start our day in prayer. We start our day in God's word. And I know he goes before us and prepares in advance what you need. Is there any example where God answered a prayer or intervened in a way that we couldn't have done the job?
I think it's a lot of the divine appointments that I see on deployment is the best way the Lord answers my prayers, especially in the chaos, the organizing the teams and knowing the size of teams, how many people need to go on which team, which work site, what that looks like when they're in the field. That's very hard to predict and hard to plan for. But just seeing the Lord work in each and one of those individual job sites is incredible. Every morning we spend time in prayer, and every night as well, just praying that the Lord brings the volunteers that need to be here, and that we can keep our eyes open to those divine appointments, to the people that the Lord puts in our path, and that we serve them in his name. So just to see on a work site, say in Wisconsin, there was a house we were working in, and we were taking out some drywall, and there were snakes in the wall. All of a sudden, huge rat snakes fell out, and people obviously kind of freaked out a little bit. But it turns out one of the volunteers was an actual professional snake handler. So they went over and dealt with the snakes. And how does that happen? Nobody plans to put a snake handler on a team and help deal with the snakes that show up, but it happened on that site. Wow. Or we have a home we go into, and there in Wisconsin, again, there was some flooring issues. And so we needed to kind of help reset the foundation, put some new plywood in. And it just so happens that we had a construction foreman on that job as well. And so they were able to correctly guide and figure out the tools needed, the equipment needed, the materials needed, and it all got done that day. So it's not things that we can really plan for, but it's things that the Lord just does through us. And every time that happens, that's an answer to our prayers each and every day.
I love getting a chance to spotlight these divine appointments. They remind me that the Lord goes before us. Every day, as our teams work and serve around the world, we cannot forget that the Lord is the one who opens doors, who brings the right people, and who softens hearts. Proverbs 19:21 says, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." We do our best to try to control things, but God's plan will always come to pass. And I'm grateful the Lord, He allows us to be a part of His work. He doesn't need us, but He wants us to take part in this kingdom building work. May you depend on the Lord in the hard, in the good, that you trust in His plans, that they're better than we could think, ask, or imagine. Thank you so much for listening this week. Please be praying for the ongoing North America disaster relief responses. I can't wait to bring you more stories from the field in the future. I would really appreciate if you would just take a minute to leave a review. It actually does help us. The team and I really enjoy reading your thoughts about On the Ground, but it also allows more people to hear the podcast. Thank you again for listening. God bless you.